welcome back to our channel. It is now the beginning of December, which means Nonfiction November has come to an end, and it's time for me to share what I managed to read during Nonfiction November. In my Nonfiction November TBR video from a few weeks ago, I talked about 8 books that I was looking to pick up and potentially read during the month, and I managed to read some of them, not all of them. I certainly wasn't expecting to read all of them, but I managed to get, some of them read, so that's good. The first book that I decided to read was Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. This is her second book. It's another semi-memoir, semi-book of essays about her life, family, love life, her career, stuff like that. I knew it was going to be a pretty fast-paced, easy read, and that's definitely what I got. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I think my humor and Mindy Kaling's humor doesn't overlap too much. There were some things she wrote about, there's particularly when she was talking about her sorority, things like that I was really enjoying. Learned a bit more about Hollywood life, which I liked, but it's okay. It's like a 3-star book. Enjoyable, but not the best thing I've ever read. The second book that I read was March, Book 3, which is by John Lewis and Andrew Aden. I borrowed this from the library. It's the third and final book in the graphic novel series March, which is about the civil rights movement in the 1960s. And it was every bit as moving and intense and sobering as I thought it was going to be. With everything that's been happening lately, the Black Lives Matter movement, etc., this book series just feels like the right thing to be reading. It's a good way to sort of understand where we've come from and maybe help us discern any progress that we've made. If you're looking to learn a bit more about the civil rights movement but don't want to tackle a huge textbook, nonfiction size sort of thing, this graphic novel series is probably exactly what you're looking for. The third book I tackled was No Way Down by Graham Bowley. This is about the 2008 K2 disaster in which a number of mountaineers died due to a giant serac that fell off the mountain and cut some guide ropes that the teams were using towards the top of the mountain, and it just sort of caused a couple horrible things to happen because there were no guide ropes to help them down. I powered through this book just like I thought I would. It's the kind of thing where one dramatic thing happens and another dramatic thing happens and everything is building on itself, so by the end you're sort of emotionally exhausted and you have to sit back and really take in everything that happened. I really do enjoy reading books like that. It's why I loved Into Thin Air so much, but I have to say this one doesn't quite compare to Into Thin Air. I think that's because when Jon Krakauer wrote that book, he was there experiencing everything on the mountain as well, and although oxygen deprivation can obviously cause people to think they see one thing when it's actually another thing, this one, it was done by a journalist who was not actually there at the time. So he's an impartial investigator in the sense that he doesn't have any preconceived notions about anybody, but he didn't experience it, so it doesn't have the same visceral feeling, I think. It's certainly worth your time, though, if you're someone that enjoys these kinds of books. I strongly recommend picking it up. The fourth and last book that I managed to complete during Nonfiction November was Men Explain Things to Me by Rebecca Solnit, which is a book of essays, particularly feminist essays, that deal with a range of topics. The title of the book is from the first essay, but there are 7 in total, and I did enjoy some of the essays, particularly the first 2, but there were some other ones that were really kind of meh to me. There was one about Virginia Woolf, which, okay, cool, but it didn't really feel like it was the right sort of book to put that in. So there was some really powerful stuff in there, but there was also some so-so stuff for me. I'm glad I read it, but I'm also glad I just picked it up from the library and borrowed it that way. And the final book that I started, but certainly have not finished, is I Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. This is the young woman that was shot by the Taliban for speaking out about women being educated in Pakistan. I'm only about 40 pages in, so I just barely managed to start reading this in November, but I will certainly continue and maybe finish it by the end of the year. We'll see. There were 3 books on my TBR that I didn't even get to. The first one was On Immunity by Eula Biss. The second was Hope, Adventures of a Diamond by Marian Fowler. The third one was Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I had this one on hold at the library, or at least I was on the waiting list for it, and there's 5 copies in circulation, but for some reason nobody managed to turn theirs in time for me to read it during Nonfiction November. So still waiting to read that one. I still very much want to read it. The other 2 will go back on my bookshelf for reading at a later date. And yeah, that's it. So pretty successful. I got half of them read, started a 5th one. I'm cool with that. Hopefully if you guys participated in Nonfiction November, you had a successful month as well, no matter how many books you were challenging yourself to read. Feel free to share how things went for you down below. As always, all of the links are in the doobly-doo. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.